أهلا وسهلا بكم في برنامج استوديو المهرجان، تابع لمهرجان أفلام السعودية في نسخته 11. معكم حسين الضوء، أقابل المهتمين بصناعة السينما من مخرجين وكتاب ونقاد وما إلى ذلك. ضيفي في هذه الحلقة المخرج البريطاني كولين المعروف بعدة أعمال من ضمنها دكتور هو ومسلسل رشاش، وحائز على كثير من الترشيحات في بافتا وجولدن جلوب. أحاوره اليوم حول أعماله السابقة وحول السينما في المجمل. Colin Teague, I'm very happy to have you here today.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Is it your first time here in the Saudi Festival? Or
It is actually, yes. That's
yeah,
right.
it's not going to be your last, I hope. But and you're going to have a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've been enjoying myself the last few days.
Yes. I would like to start by talking about Rashash. It's one of my favorite shows. So when Rashash came out in 2021, maybe it was the first Saudi show for me that kept me waiting every week to see the episode. And that's because maybe I'm talking about myself. It was the first
I don't think you were the only one.
Yeah. It was the first time for me to see a Saudi drama that's been visually appealing like that. It was shot cinematically. And that's not only, I'm not even talking about the script, I'm just talking about visually. So do you remember how the show was received? Have you read anything about the show? What people usually, what the people say about the show?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So obviously I'm due to just various other things that happened. I was actually in prep on another series when the film went out. So the film went out in that July, I think July 21. And it was a bit of a shock. They had to release it. It was a decision that was made that they would release it a couple of weeks before when it was supposed to then go out. So we were all due to come over for an opening and a premiere. And then certain events happened and it was decided quickly to get it out because there may have been, you're dealing with a subject, and nobody was really unsure. Everyone knows about the legend of Rash. Okay. It was like, people talked about it, and I think there was just this question of who's this guy who's coming to the region, right? It's a Tabi tribe. You've got to be very careful. You want to, be respectful. And I certainly was, and I really wanted to be. But equally, I think at the same time, there was a lot of people looking over my shoulder going, who is, what is it? Are you allowed to do? Should it be shown? Is this going to be detrimental? So anyway, the decision was taken to release it early.
Oh, okay.
Just the first 2 episodes. Just to test the water, if anything, to see if it was going to be all right. And I remember I was in Cairo at the time, and my producer came in and he's just said, they've just released it, they've just dropped it. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, there's no advertising. We'd done maybe 1 or 2 trailers, so people had got heard. And then within about 72 hours, it just seemed to blow up.
It did.
Yeah, everyone had watched the first, I think they released the first 2 eps. And then, there may have been a storm brewing, but that storm just dissipated. I think everybody realized then that I was trying to bring to the region, I was brought to the region to hopefully up its game, as we say in the UK. I wanted to bring high-end, high-quality, HBO quality. I'd worked for Netflix, Amazon, BBC, doing high-end drama, various award nominations throughout my last 20 years. And Sheikh Waleed brought me to the region. There was just a proposal. Said, look, we want to make something that really is standout and could just raise the bar. And I was excited by that. And there was, there was a constraint obviously within budget and so forth. But I was working with, we brought a team together, and but cutting to the question was you're saying, so it went out, but I was away, and so everything was through hearing responses from WhatsApp and some of the cast, some of the crew getting in touch. It's gone amazing. I remember hearing someone said that they opened a cafe called Rash Cafe, right? And it had all the posters of the baddies, right? Which wasn't. It was like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure how that's gone down. So it went well. But then, and just to finish on that, so I never really got a reaction. I got reaction from the industry. The industry has been extremely, overwhelmingly positive, and everyone's just gone, wow, oh, you did Rash.
Yeah.
But for me, the other night, I was with my daughter. We were in Riyadh, and we were sat around this table, and I was introduced to 2 gentlemen Just kind of, we're there, just wondering what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm very quite, I don't go around, I'm just quite a normal guy, just having dinner with my daughter and, but he was just interested, just this guy, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. So I was introducing myself. And then and he's my age, maybe a bit older. And I mentioned that, I was a filmmaker and we'd just done this new film, Isaf. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But also, and he'd heard of it, but hadn't seen it yet. And I said, I know I did a series a few years back called Rash.
Everybody knows it.
And this guy's response, from that, he kind of sat back. It was amazing. And he said, hang on a minute, I've got to go and get my friend. And his friend came and he introduced himself and he was a police officer. And he says, I'm retired now. And he was a police officer back then. And he goes, and he said, so all of those stories that you told, goes, I was there. That it spoke to me. That series spoke to me. And he goes, you have no idea how. And it's the first time I'd seen a genuine response from these two men. Right? And these are men that ultimately I would have gone, would they even be interested in our series? They were lovely men. One was a banker, right? Sort of like, and just nice. But another guy, just normal guy. But yeah, there was a genuine sort of, appetite and love for this, or creation of, wow, what you did, it just raised the bar. So, and that's not people in that industry, that's normal people. And that for me was, I suppose, the first time that I realized maybe it did have an effect.
Yeah, it did actually. I still remember how the show forced a lot of people to write about a Saudi show, which is something that doesn't really happen most of the time. Usually, there are so many Saudi TV shows that just come and go and nobody even notices them. But Rash, I've seen so many, not only Saudis, but also from Kuwait, from neighboring countries. They were interested, they watched the show, they wrote about it critically, or even, like they analyzed it and they talked about it. And that's, to me, it's a huge success in itself. So, since you mentioned that, you met those guys talking about Rash, it's funny that although you did, Doctor Who and you did, the spin-off of it and you did so many other things, but here in Saudi, maybe when you tell someone, Dino Colin, he would probably know you by Rash. Even if he doesn't know your name, you just have to tell him he's the guy who did Rash, and he gonna know you right away. I want to talk about the story of Rash. It is a true story, and it is also recent. It's in the 80s, right? And
late 80s, early 90s.
Exactly, yeah. So I remember I met this guy, and he was talking to me about the show, and he was like, I remember those days when we used to drive to, I think he said from here to Riyadh, or from Riyadh to somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
And he was like, we used to be scared because everybody was talking about those guys in the highways. So we lived this experience. So Rash to us, it wasn't only a work of art that we're gonna watch and enjoy. It is something actually we can be connected to.
True events. I mean, it was based on true events. I mean, it changed actually policing within the kingdom.
Exactly, yeah. So you wrote this story. So what do you think people would say about the idea that you are taking a real story and turn it into something, let's say it's fiction? So how did you turn
reality? Or as we said, I think we said based on true events.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, because, if you take it literally the story as it is, or as it was, I mean, and you're dealing with something again that I think culturally, there is a resistance there to open up some of these stories, whether they feel it's just, and rightly so, they're just like, maybe we're embarrassed about that part of our history, because we don't want to, do we really want to shine a light on this bad person? What would that say within the kingdom? So I understand that as well, but equally these stories, for better, and I think it was for better. I mean, they changed the way that the policing was done after that event. But, because, ultimately these individuals would go into society, the wider society, they would rob, steal, they would, they were pillaged, there were drugs involved, Captagon, there were guns involved, as we know. So there was a lot of wrongdoings there. And they were frightening a lot of people, and I think your comment is that people were afraid to travel. Yeah, they did. They were worried of being hijacked, and then, but they were, because of the strength of the tribe, they were then going back into these villages and the tribes, and, the police could not, their hands were tied. You couldn't move forward. Yeah. I mean, it was fascinating for me to even research this, that a police officer was not allowed then, because it was disrespectful. You would go and see the elder, and you would talk to them, and it would like, no, these people aren't here, they're not in my village, and and so you would then just leave. And obviously, in where I come from, my society, it's probably very much the other way. The police are, they might look at you and they'll listen, but if they think something's going on there, they're going in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, so I've come from that, but I was quite admiring of that. Wow, that's so respectful. But equally, I think what happened was, no, it became to a point now when, well, if we've got this one unit of these bad eggs, let's call them, these bad individuals that are doing that, who's to say other people won't? And that's why I think the decision was taken that we need to all come together, collaborate, and say, you cannot do that. You can't hide behind your elders, your tribes and individuals. And therefore they were allowed, and one by one they were brought down. Whether you say to me, oh, this part of the story is not true, right? I'm sure there's several, right? I can list one, right, that I know that we took the tanker we know happened, okay? The takedown on that tanker happened, okay? They blew it up on that stretch of a highway, and they robbed the cars.
That scene where he climbed the truck.
Well, whether he climbed it in that dramatic way like Yaqub did, or but they brought down a truck. They brought down the tanker. They blew it up. They robbed all of and took hostages or very short term. But we know that a lot of things were stolen from those cars. Right, and that was something that did go on. They would hold them up at gunpoint at various areas, filling stations, those sort of things. We know went on. Also, as well, you're dealing with, it was very sensitive material, and rightly so. The government were careful about what material they gave us to film, or even to actually know of the stories. So we worked tirelessly. When I came to the region, right, in 2020, and to do this story. Right, I tried to go through the files and tried to learn. I couldn't get an image. No one wanted to speak to me. The walls were there, right? And it was slowly, and it was only through a lot of hard work from a lot of the team at NBC, right? All slowly contributing to, okay, I found this part. Someone's going to let me in. Someone's willing to talk to us about this. And slowly we built.
So the research was a bit tough for you to gather all the information.
It was very tough. But we tried. So that's why we say loosely based on true events, or just based on true events, but. So the bank heist, okay? That wasn't, which is a wonderful sequence, episode 5, watch it. It's a great sequence. But that, and we could talk about the filmic way of how we approach that as well. And that I think is something we should do. Each episode, we took a kind of movie that my heart, where I grew up. And I just kind of thought, oh, that's this. It's a Western. It's Peckenbauer, right? So
there were several Western scenes, by the way,
of course.
when the cop and Rash were talking in this cowboy shop.
It's a classic. Yeah,
yes.
That's Sergio Leone. So come on. So even our director, Sergio Leone, wonderful man. I advise anyone here who wants to be a filmmaker, right? Watch Sergio Leone films. Watch Sam Peckinpah. Sam Peckinpah, that was the bank heist, right? If you watch Dog Day Afternoon. Right, that's what you need to go and see. You'll see that there's parallels, right? So, and I was fortunate enough, I was given this platform, right? Because NBC and Shahid, they very kindly said, look, we want you to play. We want this to be big, And I was going, well, then how do I, and it's got to be filmic. And I was like, wow. So we treated it, each episode as a movie.
Yeah.
Very much.
I think you guys pulled it off really well, So, but when we talk about the bad guys here, I think that's why I believe you guys made sure to make those guys purely evil. So people do not celebrate those guys. That's why the show has those morally polarized people. This is the good side and this is the bad side.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're trying to avoid the idea of making Rash a celebrity.
Yeah, he's not a hero.
Exactly. He's an anti-hero, as people say.
He's an anti-hero. He is an anti-hero.
Yeah.
You're drawn into his world.
Yeah.
You see that there is issues, and you can see some of it is through just circumstance. Through a series of events, a man can be led to do this, right? But at each time though, there is a fork in the road, right? We say there's a fork in the road. He could have gone down this path. He chose to go down this path.
Yes. Right. To deal with his orphanage and
exactly. His past, his father, his upbringing, where he felt how he belonged in society. So it's kind of those things, and whether he was resentful about certain things, I don't know. I didn't meet the man.
So I want to ask you about the desert.
Ah,
Yeah, because there is something interesting to me. So you came from the UK and you did a lot of work there, and you are coming from different geography to the Middle East here or to Saudi. And the desert in Rashash wasn't just a setting, a place. It was kind of a background character. So Rashash, he always trusted the desert. He goes back to this
he hides in
the
the
place to
desert.
hide
It's
there.
just
It's kind of
it's his world.
his world, his place. He's safe there. And even that motif of that kept appearing, the horse, which represents Rashash running in the desert.
Yeah, the freedom.
So, the freedom, exactly. So
Yeah.
how could you, I mean, how did you come up with this, idea of portraying the desert that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, I watched David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia when I was a very young filmmaker. And I watched it several times. And again, it's a film that just drew me in of this land, this place, and this environment, right? Of the desert. And I'd never been to a desert. I've shot everywhere. I've shot on the sea, I've shot pretty much, I don't know, a lot of continents, right? A lot of countries. I've been very fortunate, and to then have the opportunity. But I'd never done a desert.
Oh, okay. So Rashash was your first.
It was my first desert.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I remember I've got these images of me coming here, and I came before the Christmas. We did a scout, and we went to Liwa in the UAE, and kind of like we were looking around, and our plan was to do there, and then come over to the kingdom, and we were going to look at desert there and see which one was going to work out. And but it was just going there and seeing this endless infinity of just sand and the colours and the ripple. And what was amazing is that just the way the wind settles and it creates this beautiful, beautiful sort of like soft landing, and it is like waves across on the sand. And I was like, gosh.
And the sand dunes.
And the sand dunes and the colour, right? There was a vibrant red that was really coming through. And it was just, I was like, wow, I want to capture that. I can't wait. That was, and I can see why. Also, we went out there and you literally off the road, you can go on a dune buggy and you're in there and suddenly you can be lost. It's very easy to get lost.
If you're not aware of how.
Yeah, and obviously the Bedouin people, they know the desert. That is, you can put them anywhere in that desert, right? And they will get home.
They can orient themselves easily.
It's incredible. Yeah, now I've read Theisner was a writer, an English writer back in the 1930s, I think it was. Yeah, it was 30s or 50s. And he was an explorer. And he went through the Saudi desert. I read some of his novels, just those stories, and he was saying that he lived amongst the Bedouin people, and it was just remarkable that he would be looking around and they're lost, and they'd be going, no, it's this way. And it's like, how are you reading this? So that I felt we can bring some of that element with Rashash, that he would be able to always go and hide, feel comfortable to lose yourself in the desert. And I think we did capture that. The motif about the horse is something that I think, again, I think he was happiest in our world, in my world, in the story, the framework that we told. He was most happy when it was him, Gahas, and Mahal. Yeah, the three of them when they were younger, and they were trying to chase that horse. They talk about it in episode 2, the end of episode 2, and he says, do you remember when you chased that horse? You're still chasing horses? And he says it, and they take the Michael, they laugh at him, right? It's a joke, it's a kind of an in-joke, but you kind of see it settle, that he's like, I will get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I am gonna, and it worked. It was a kind of it was a currency for him. If I can get that horse, I've got my own freedom. I've got my independence. He was a lone man. He just wanted something to grab onto.
Yeah. I think that motif was great, visually, and even the meaning of it, besides so many other things. I have a lot to say about Rashash, actually. I always enjoy talking about it.
Man, I'm very happy to carry on with Rashash.
Yeah.
I'm in a comfortable zone now.
Yeah, but maybe we have like 10 or 15 minutes, and I would like to spend some time to talk about your new feature, Isaf.
Isaf.
Yes.
Isaf.
And it is competing in this Saudi Film Festival in the feature films.
Yeah.
So I'm very unfortunate that I didn't get to see it yet, but I will for sure.
Alhamdulillah. Hopefully you will.
I will tomorrow, maybe after tomorrow. And so if you just tell us anything about Isaf.
Yeah, so this is a project that was brought to me last May by Ibrahim Al-Hajj, who I'd worked with again on Rash, and him Gahas, and Peter Smith again, who was our exec on Rash. He also approached, the two of them approached me with Talal from Blacklight, and they were looking for a director to come in and do this. At the time, it was just termed a comedy. And this is where the interesting thing is, that I've never really done an out-and-out comedy. It's not my comfort zone.
Right, yeah.
And I think most people, if you've seen Rash, and if you've seen my previous work, yeah, I've done family, but I've also done a lot of dark stuff. I do sci-fi.
You do sci-fi, fantasy, crime.
Period drama, contemporary drama, psychological thrillers, cop dramas. It's kind of, you go, all right, okay. Comedy. It doesn't really fit with me. But I think what they were considering was, this has to land. Okay, we want a visual. We don't want it just to be. I don't want to be detrimental about other shows or films or whatever. But what I think they saw was they want to make their mark, right? So they were very keen to get a visual identity. They knew that I would. The thing about me is I'm so passionate about what I do, right? And the crew are with me. And I make them with me because I make them realize and believe just how important it is, your role, how important it is on set. Everyone's role has to work, right? We're a machine. And if everyone's, as long as everyone's all tied in and we're all on for the greater good, we're going to get there. Okay, I don't drop anyone, right? I'm very much, it's a collaboration. I'm not an auteur, okay? The film industry is built on many parts. Right. And one of the greatest parts is the crew, right, and the cast. When we get there, and it's the structure of that, through a schedule, we're going to hit those days. Right? We're not going to drop the ball, right, as we say. We're going to carry on and we're going to get through. So we're all joining together. So I think they knew that they would be comfortable on that, but how about the comedy? And I said, well, let me read the script. And I read the script and I kind of got involved in the character. Well, this lovely character called Omar, who Ibrahim plays. And he's a kind of hapless ambulance worker with his partner. But it was, I realized that there's action in this. There's a series of events. I don't know whether I'm allowed to give away the plot. Probably don't, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but there's a something happens. These guys, they stumble across something and some element, and that element leads to a series of adventures and escapades which they go on.
Okay.
And it's, but it's a heartfelt journey. There is a lot of fun, I have to say. And eventually, so that he goes on a quest, right, to save the girl, right? He's got to give someone something back, and then hopefully he can save the girl.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But then even that has its ramifications and so forth.
Right.
I don't want to give too much away.
But since you mentioned the crew and how you guys worked on it, I want to ask you about shooting in Riyadh.
Yeah.
So this is your first time to shoot in Saudi and in Riyadh. Yeah. And I've heard Ibrahim talking a couple of days ago in the red carpet how excited he was doing this show, how the people was very cooperative and everybody was helpful. So if you want to talk about this.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting as well because I come into Riyadh. I've been to Riyadh several times, but I hadn't had the chance to actually film here because of the COVID on the last time with Rash. So we ended up being in the UAE. But so here I was really determined to see and show all facets of Riyadh, right? And so obviously I've seen the high rise, the glamour, right? And the nightlife, the neon. I've kind of got an element of that. We'd shown the desert, but I was like, I want to scrape the surface of that. What other areas are there? And we found there's a place called Shemazi, which not many people know that. It's an old part of the city.
Okay.
Right? And everyone and I didn't even tell people we were going to film there. I knew that if I told them we were going to film there, they would have said no, right? But I went there with my scout, Sammy, right? And he was an awesome guy, my production guy. And he showed me, and he goes, no one films here, Colin. And I said, this is perfect, right? So, and we didn't actually tell anyone. They said, oh, we're shooting somewhere down here, downtown, right? And I said, yeah, just downtown, that's fine. Just put that on the thing. No one, and as it turned out, when we did the recce with the crew were all there going, wow, this place is amazing. I've never been here. I didn't even know this existed. Luckily, some of the people that, may have said weren't there at that point, right? So we carried on. And then when we arrived there, I remember seeing the faces of Ibrahim and a few of we're going to film here? Wow. Anyway, it comes across really well. So that's, because it's not just, I wanted to show, as I say, all of the areas. So that was kind of just a sort of a rawer kind of gritty area. Equally, we found this amazing location of a metalworks, which was, it goes on the screen and everyone goes, where's that? And that's what I want.
That would be interesting even for the Saudis to see that
exactly
that area.
Yes. And I want to, and it's because, again, when I'm there, what I do visually, I see it. Right? I turn up at a location, the manager, and I go around 6 or 7 locations with the location manager, who by the end of the day hates me because it's no la. Hang on, whoa, and it's there. And I just sort of looking around. I'm going, you can come out of that door, you can go through there. We're looking at the car there. We can do this, and it's just suddenly all falls into place, right? And I could see it. And if I can see it, I know that it'll work.
Yeah.
And then it's my job then to tell that story to my crew, to tell that story to my actors, right, and get them excited as I am inside, right, so that they're all then prepared and they've all got a chance. So we showed the new area, the big sort of banking area, what's it called, Saad, forgive me, the banking area in Riyadh, huge, great high rise,
Okay, not Kaft. No.
Kaft.
Oh, Kaft.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we shot outside Kaft as well. That was it, because I knew that a couple of films had filmed inside Kaft, and I went, okay, we use it as a backdrop. Right?
Oh, okay.
So we use it, and that's really nice. We went to these amazing villa that was fantastic for our end set piece. This lovely, heartfelt gentleman gave up his house so that we could use it for. We completely redecorated it with our amazing designer Hisham. Came over, and so we took the family out. We went in, because the other thing is I don't do studio.
Oh, okay.
Everything is real. Right? It's all location. So everything is on location, and then we bring our build to it.
Yeah.
It's authentic then.
Yeah.
And I wanted an authenticity about this. And then, as it progressed, and with the workings of we got a brilliant cast, very fortunate. Faisal Al-Doki, we've got Fahad Al-Batari, as well as, Ibrahim, Mohammed.
Yes. I'm sure it's going to be a very great film. I can't wait until I see it. Unfortunately, our time
We've
is
run out of time.
Yeah, we run out of time, and we can also carry on this, at some other time. So thank you for being here with me today. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too.
It was a lot easier than what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, that's great. Anyway, so we have to conclude here, and thank you, Colin Teague. Hopefully I'm going to see you.
Very lovely to
some other
meet you.
time.
Thank you, sir.
You too. شكرا لكم أعزائي على الاستماع، ونلقاكم إن شاء الله في حلقة أخرى مع ضيف جديد. شكرا لكم.